lights are done. Cabinet lights, coffee lights around the perimeter. We are looking at 22 watts, but the AC is done. And obviously, you've seen the outside. Welcome back to the channel in part 2 of this cargo trailer camper conversion. And in part 2 here, we're going to go over the rear wall, all the details, what it took to construct that, the rear barn doors, what it took to waterproof them, and the side screen door. In part 1, before this part, we kind of went over the exterior, the whole reasoning why to do this. And make sure you check out my playlist area. I'll start a playlist on this entire video series. And then the other parts yet to come, we'll cover the interior, electrical, plumbing, the liner, the ceiling, you name it. But with that being said, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification all so when these other parts come out that you are notified. Enough said, let's get this going. Now before I go on to the rear wall, let's cover these barn doors. I waterproof these barn doors using Duxback paint. I got it from Menards. It's actually not in the paint department, but it's actually in the gutter aisle where the rubber roofing is. And it's actual commercial grade rubber roofing made by Duxback paint. And not only did I put 1, but 2, 3, 4 total coats on these doors. But before I did that, I prepped this up using Quad Max caulk. It's about the best caulk that money could purchase, and I got all that from Menards. And I'll splice in pictures of not only this Duxback paint, but also that Quad Max caulk. And what I did is I made sure that I caulked everything. I'm talking every single seam around the perimeter, including where the plywood meets the aluminum frame. I caulked all that. I'll splice in pictures of what that looks like while I did it. And I also popped out, I don't know if I can get a picture of this, but all these little screws around these plastic corners. I caulked everything. I popped out every single screw on these corners, siliconed them, and popped them back in. And then I Quad Maxed every single joint. Once that was completely prepped up, I lightly, before I actually caulked it, I lightly sanded this, not much, wiped off all that sawdust, and use that Quad Max on these doors. And then I did the 4 total coats of Duxback paint. And I will splice it in a picture right now. We've used this several times camping. I think we've been on 3 total trips where we got a torrential downpour. We left these doors completely open during a torrential downpour. I'm pretty sure I got that video footage of literally a sheet of water going down these doors. How's the Bloody Mary coming along?
Good.
What do you think of this weather?
About all we can do.
Well, the 4 coats of rubber roofing on the barn doors is pulling up obviously really well. And with 4 total coats, I wasn't worried whatsoever. And they're holding up just like the day I painted them. And we actually used this camper while I was working on it during the last summer. And I actually plan on doing the side door here eventually. I just wanted to get these done right away because we can always shut that door. But I just want to make you aware of how I waterproof these rear doors. And obviously I got this one and this one. So when we're done camping, obviously we can just shut these up, lock at home. And these doors probably only see light of day, maybe, I don't know, 8 camping trips out of the year, if that. So the fact that it could take a downpour a few times out of the year, trust me, it's not an issue. And I'm glad I went this route. It was easy and inexpensive. Now, before I framed in this wall, there was a couple things I had to get done right out of the gate. First is I did the demo work. There were some really thin, roughly 1/4 inch strips of Lawan plywood that covered the gaps on the side plywood of the interior liner. I demoed all that out, and be careful when you're removing that. There's staples in those Lawan strips. They're very sharp. They definitely can cut you, and that happened to me, so that's why I'm telling you. And the first thing I did after that was lay in the floor. We got roll-out vinyl flooring. I actually glued mine down rather than free-floating it. I did not paint the floor, but I did use adhesive to adhere that flooring down to the floor before I framed this wall. Now I'll splice in some pictures here, but I framed this rear wall with 2x3s. I decided not to use 2x2s. I just felt like they're easy to warp and twist, just not strong enough. And I didn't want to go as heavy as 2x4s. I just decided 2x3s would be adequate enough, and sure enough, they were perfect. When I framed in this wall, I didn't go all the way to the ceiling. I actually stopped it just a little bit over the opening of the cargo doors here. For one reason, I want to leave a gap here above this wall so I could access this lighting if I ever needed to. And I think it's a really smart idea to do that. So that's what I did. But I did frame in this wall with 2x3s, and I covered it with 7/16 OSB. Being that I wanted to put vinyl siding on this, I want to give it like a house look, like a barnish house type look once these barn doors were open. I didn't nail on this vinyl siding like a typical house with galvanized roofing nails. I want to make sure that these fasteners never pulled out on the vinyl siding itself, and I actually used a wafer head type screw. You just got to make sure, regardless if you use nails or screws, that you don't screw or nail those fasteners home tight on vinyl siding. You got to leave a credit card's thickness gap between the head and the nail fin of the vinyl siding, because vinyl siding loves to expand and contract, especially when the sun hits it or it gets cold at night. It expands and contracts, and if you fasten those fasteners home, regardless if it's a nail or screw, that vinyl siding will buckle. And that's the reason why they put an elongated nail slot in there, so that siding can expand and contract. Now, just some details here. Obviously, I ran the 2x3s, and I'll splice in those pictures of the framing. I actually designed this out to make sure that my window rough openings, measured out the air conditioner, and all this was going to fit, because I'm literally putting 10 pounds of in a 5-pound bag here. And I don't have much room here for studs, and I'll splice in those pictures between the side of the window of the wall, between the window and the air conditioner, and so on. So you really got to kind of think that out. So I just made sure my window rough openings are correct, and I carefully designed this out, and I'll splice some pictures here of the air conditioner. I'll go over that in a little bit. I decided to go with 7/16 sheathing. I sacrificed a little bit of weight, and there really isn't much plywood on here, to be honest with you, to put too much weight in the back. I just wanted some extra meat with that plywood to make sure when I use those wafer head screws for the siding that I had something to screw into and it wouldn't strip out. But like I said, I'll splice in some pictures of this framing. And once that sheathing was on, I put on some house wrap to make sure that if any water happened to get behind this vinyl siding, that it wouldn't rot out the plywood. It's just like a house, they would do the same damn thing. Once the house wrap was on, I used window flashing tape around the windows, around the air conditioner hole, and also around the perimeter to make sure that even if water was to get behind this vinyl siding or condensate behind the vinyl siding, that it wouldn't rot out that plywood. And especially being that I'm only using this probably 6 to 8 times a year, this should last an entire lifetime. I also made sure that I put some thought into my 30 amp shore power hookup, which I just used a vinyl J block. But right now I'm just running, I actually got steel J channel. I didn't run vinyl J channel around the perimeter. I just wanted something a little more heavy duty and something I could really caulk into, and I knew it wouldn't flex. And once I got this framed in, I got it covered with plywood, house wrap, got the windows put in, designed the air conditioner portal. And what's special about this design is I put a little bit of a slant on this air conditioner ledge, just so once my trailer is level, that this is at a slight pitch so the water can drain out. It actually drains down on this pan, and I actually custom bent this air conditioner pan here, and it actually goes up on the sides, and it's completely watertight with Quadmax caulk. And I'll splice in some pictures of that. Actually, on the shelf of this, I used 3/4 veneer plywood to make sure it's nice and strong. I screwed down into that frame, and then I took some 1x4s and wrapped it around that to create this ledge. And what happens is you just, when you're ready to camp, you open your doors, you just push out this air conditioner unit, And then when you're done, you just push it back in. And it works awesome. I mean, I am actually really pleased with how this turned out. And then I went around this with steel J-channel I got at Menards. I made sure that this galvanized pan that I custom bent with a brake, they sell this in sheets in the duct area of Menards. I just bent this up as needed. Yes, it does take a little skill to do that, but I guess I have that ability. But make sure that any water condensate that drips down this pan while we're using this drips off this onto the J-channel, onto the siding, and down below. These windows I got from Menards. They're actually utility windows. They're just a single pane glass. They're not double insulated. You can definitely get double insulated glass, but I got these as single hungs. What a single hung means is the top sash is fixed, the bottom sash is operable, and those are single hung. I'm sure you can get double hung if you want, especially if you want to insulate this during the winter. You might want to consider that. These windows are also special that they have a built-in J-channel. I didn't have to run a special J-channel around this window once they were installed. And once I had these windows installed with a nail fin, I made sure I went over that nail fin with window flashing tape. And then I installed my vinyl siding right into the J-channel of that window, which is really nice. As for the J-block, I made sure I had enough clearance, because you're going to see here eventually I have a bed right here. It's actually a lift bed with storage underneath it, and I want to make sure that the hole I cut for this, for the 30 amp shore power hookup, which I'll go over this in detail during the electrical part of the series, that this hole opening for the hookup didn't hit the bed frame, which is obviously important. And this actually just pops off. There's actually some screws right here that holds all of this on, and this is watertight. You can see there's a rubber gasket here, and it's just like a little mini house, and it's kind of cool. That's what we wanted, and that's what we designed, and that's what we built. And it turned out fantastic. Matter of fact, we get a lot of compliments when we're out camping. People say it actually looks like a little mini house, and it kind of is. Now on the bottom here, before I install the siding, Menards, they can custom bend any steel flashing that you want. And I designed a little diagram. Matter of fact, I'll paste that picture into the video here of the diagram I drew up for this. But this actually goes up underneath the vinyl siding, comes down, bends off at an angle, goes down over the lip of the floor, comes out, and then comes back down roughly 3/8 of an inch to make sure that any water that comes down this vinyl siding drips off and onto the ground. And once that was installed, I actually put window flashing tape on top of that too, to make sure if any water hit this house wrap, that it hits that window flashing tape onto this special custom trim and then drips off onto the ground. And then I use Quad Max caulk on both sides here to make sure that this was watertight. And when I say that Quad Max caulk is the best, it is the best. Spend the extra money, it's well worth it. Then what I did is I use pole barn screws. What's special about pole barn screws is pole barn screws have a little rubber grommet underneath the head, and they're self-sealing. And all I did is the top part I nailed home with, I believe, galvanized roofing nails. No, I used screws, wafer head screws. Went over that with window flashing tape, and then I used pole barn screws here and screwed this right into the subfloor of the floor itself. And man, this works great. Not only does it work great, but it looks great. So let me take you inside here. Now I'll go over this screen door here in a little bit, but just to show you the inside of this wall and just to give you an idea of what this kind of looks like inside. This is obviously the mattress frame without the mattress. This is actually a lift bed, so there's actually storage underneath. You can kind of get an idea of what that interior wall framing looks like on the bottom side underneath the bed with the service intake for electrical. But this is the inside. Now it's completely finished off, and it's really nice. We actually covered this with 1/4-inch tongue and groove cedar planking, and you can get a better idea, at least on the 2 windows and the air conditioner unit, on how that pushes in and out. And that's got a little bit of a frame. But I'll splice in some pictures of this wall as I was framing it. And sorry, I got some people over here with a loud truck. You might hear that. But like I said, I did this in 2x3s. And I didn't cover this with plywood on the interior. Literally, this is only covered with a 1x4 tongue and groove cedar planks on the inside. But I left this short on the top, and this trim piece here, and I'll zoom in on this, is you can see I got screws on this trim piece, so I can remove that, and I left a gap above this wall so I can access that area where all the wiring is for the exterior lights. I think that's really important to do that. But while I was framing this wall, I actually used some angle iron clips, one on the bottom here, one on each side, and one on the top on each side. And I did that for a reason. So as I framed that wall, I could actually unscrew those clips and move this wall backwards and forwards as I was working on it. And then when I got to the point where I wanted to keep it in place, I removed those brackets and toe screwed through the first and last stud into the wall liner of the trailer itself to keep it in place. And then add that in conjunction with a J channel on the outside that's caulked into place, and trust me, that wall is not going anywhere. But just to give you an idea of this rear wall, and I'll go over all the electrical and the liner in a separate video here, but I wanted to give you at least an idea of how this was framed. Now, as for the air conditioner, I had to put some serious thought of how to do this. The problem is with air conditioners, either you get a portable air conditioner that works like crap and sucks up an insane amount of wattage, which I didn't want to do. These really small window unit air conditioners, number one, use very little wattage, and 2, they work extremely well in comparison to portable air conditioners. I did a ton of research on that. And number 3, they're really, really inexpensive. I think I got this for under $200 if memory serves me correct. I think it was roughly $150 with a mail-in rebate from Menards. And like I said, this pushes in and out, and I'll splice in some diagrams that I used to kind of design all this. And then once I got that 3/4-inch plywood base, and then I had a 1x4 perimeter around it to kind of create a waterproof tray. Once I had the tray liner in there that I custom bent out of galvanized ductwork sheet metal, and I knew that this was going to function correctly, pushing in and out. I actually put a frame around the air conditioner that would slide into the wall thickness itself. The wall is constructed out of 2x3s, and the frame that I fused around the air conditioner itself, I made out of 2x3s also. And it works out really good. It's easy to push in and out. And once I had that all done, then I built this cedar box frame around it with somewhat of a shelf underneath it. So when we're laying in bed, like I said, keep in mind, this is just the bed platform. There's roughly a foot thickness of mattress, plus you need a little bit of extra room here for your pillows. This is a nice little cubby shelf here to put your cell phone or whatnot. And I'm going to go over that in the future parts of this video series, but just to give you an idea of the construction of this wall. Now, as for the side screen door here, all it is a wooden screen door that I got from Menards. And what I did is I cut the bottom off and I reframed this and re-glued and screwed every single joint, at least on the bottom here. I glued and screwed all these joints, and I reinforced every single joint here, 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 and in the corners with additional screws. And this worked out really slick. I just cut this to whatever height that I needed. And then around the perimeter here, I ran a 1x3, if memory serves me correct, and I put, I believe it was a 1/2 inch reveal around the entire perimeter with that 1x3. just to kind of build somewhat of a jamb for the door itself. And then I painted obviously the door and the jamb to match the exterior. Also, I took out the screen that came with this door. We have dogs. We want to keep some dogs inside here while we're camping. And we want some ventilation for the dogs. So we took out that screen and we replaced it with a special pet screen that they sell at Menards. And trust me when I say this, the dogs can scratch at this all day and it doesn't put a dent into it. And just to kind of go over the top, above and beyond the pet screen, we got a pet metal screen on the inside, which I'm about to show here in a little bit to give it even more protection. Just to make sure that the dogs can't escape. Especially when we're sleeping at night, we can lock this, get some ventilation, and we don't have to worry about any animals trying to get through that screen. I also added this latch here I got from Amazon. Check out the description box below. I'll have a link for the special latch that I purchased. But you can see I can just push this down if I want to open it. And then if I want to close this and keep the dogs in, I can do that too. And what's really nice, if we do get a smart aleck kid, I highly doubt it ever happened, but if it does, we can always cut the screen and open this up, but we shouldn't have to worry about that. But at least to keep the dogs in, if we're outside camping, we want some peace and quiet, we can just lock that up. Now when it's open, there's a magnetic catch here. It comes with a metal plate. I got this from Menards. And while we're camping, dogs are outside, we're coming in and out. This magnetic catch just holds this screen door shut. And I also got this handle from Menards too. Just give you a kind of general idea on the outside of this screen door. Then I just made sure I left enough of a gap here at the bottom for the carpet mat that we usually put in here while we're camping to make sure we don't get sand and mud inside the camper. And I left enough of a gap here for that mat, and then I also put a little bit of a rubber gasket here that you can also get from Menards. I just cut it to length and screwed it to the bottom of the door and made sure that I left just about 1/8 of an inch above that carpet mat, so this doesn't bind up on that mat when we're trying to open and close this door. It's more important just to keep the mosquitoes out of the camper while we're camping. At least on the bottom here, when I cut this down and I shifted this rear style board up, you can see I kind of reinforced the bottom here with these metal brackets, painted all this up, wood glued and screwed every single joint up through the sides, you name it, it's all been reinforced with screws on every single joint just to make sure that this doesn't shift out of place. And we've been using this for 1.5 years now, and it works and looks just like the day I made it. Now, it actually works really well. Now, some would argue that this should swing out, which gives you more room on the inside, which is true, but we wanted something that could just swing in for one reason. You know, it's not a big deal. I can just come in here and then shut this and do whatever I need to do. But there is this area here on the front side. There's actually a TV that goes in here. I just don't have it installed. But this is where we put like our gravity chairs, our portable table, miscellaneous stuff here. You can see I got my Bluetti portable solar power generator here for running electrical. I'm about to show that in a future part of this video series. But once our gravity chairs are in here and our portable table, we actually open this door during travel, and we're going to get a hinge here that kind of holds all that stuff back in that cubby. And that's kind of one of the design purposes for this while we're traveling. But if we're inside and we're using, say, the kitchen here, or about to go to bed, or we're laying in bed watching TV, we got tons and tons of room here to make sure that this door swings and it's not in our way. But kind of go over the inside of this screen door. As for the inside of the screen door, what I did is that 1x3 that I left a 1/2 inch reveal on the outside, like I explained earlier, I put that around the perimeter and I had to use special screws, being that I was screwing into a steel frame of the trailer itself. It gave me some wood to screw the actual wooden screen door into, and it gave that somewhat of a 1/2 inch reveal on the outside, almost like a jamb for the door itself. And then what I did, once I had the screen door to the height that I wanted, once I cut off the bottom and reinforced it all, you can kind of see that extra metal screen here above and beyond the pet screen of the screen door itself. Once I had that door completely done, I built with brick mold a frame for the screen door, and I mitered the corners. I glued and reinforced with screws going this way and down. Almost made like a pre-hung screen door itself. And I didn't install this first, and I didn't install the screen door second. I actually built it as a unit for one reason: to make sure I get my perfect, roughly 1/8 of an inch gap, maybe a little over 1/8 of an inch gap around the perimeter of the screen door itself. And I designed that frame, the brick mold frame, around the screen door itself. Built it as a unit, and then attached my 4 hinges, and then picked the whole thing up as a unit and installed it with these screws. And these screws are actually screwing into the 1x3s, not the steel frame of the cargo trailer itself. And that's why I did that. And it turned out really, really good. And you can see, once again, I got that pet screen. I also have an additional metal screen above and beyond the pet screen, so there's no way the dogs can get out, or especially when we're sleeping at night. I put a latch here so I can lock this home to lock us in, and not some crazy bear trying to open this door while we're trying to sleep, and we get some ventilation to boot. I also put obviously a handle here. You can kind of see that magnetic catch there with a magnetic plate, and at night when we're sleeping, we just lock that home. But I think that's important to build this as a unit with the brick mold frame itself and install it as a unit. Make sure, one, you get that nice 1/4 of an inch gap. Not quarter, probably a little less than a quarter, a little over 1/8, about 3/16 of an inch gap around the perimeter. And you install it as a unit to make sure that the frame works with the screen door, because trust me, the screen door is not exactly square. And another thing about these cargo trailers is nothing in a cargo trailer is square or plumb. You kind of got to adjust on the fly, and you got to keep that in the back of your mind while you're framing. Just not stuff like this, but everything. The rear wall, screen doors, cabinetry. There's really anything in this trailer that's plumb or square. So you kind of got to hide things and adjust on the fly. But that is how this screen door works, and it just works really good. We've used this for about 1.5 years now, and it works and functions just like the day I constructed it. Well, I think that's where I'm going to wrap up part 2 here, at least on waterproofing the rear barn doors, the rear wall construction itself, and the screen door. At least it gets us inside. And in the next part, part 3, I'm actually going to go over this wall liner. All the wall liner, I'm going to go over the ceiling here that I did in 1/4 inch tongue and groove cedar planking. And then also I'm going to go over this custom shelf here that's used for our kitchen. We didn't want permanent cubbies. Like I said, we want to be outside, enjoying nature, not being inside unless it's raining or we're sleeping. And what's really, really nice about this is you can just pop these latches here, one on each side. Just give you an idea of how this works. I'll go over this in detail in the future parts of the series. But we can put our groceries, vegetables, you name it, and we can pull these in and out, take them outside where we're really wanting to cook. If it is raining, I guess we'll be forced to cook here at this kitchen. But just give you an idea of what's to come. Everything from using a portable solar generator here that's hooked up to the electrical panel, and hooking up all the electrical to shore power, to the plumbing. How we built all of this is coming in the future parts of the series. And I got pictures on everything, and I think you're really, really going to enjoy it. Everything from the plumbing to electrical. And it's completely dimmable. And I got 2 circuits here, one on the front here for the kitchen area. So I'll just kind of show you here. And also a separate circuit on a separate dimmer here for the bedroom area. So I will see you guys in part 3. And like I said, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Hit that notification bell. Check out the playlist area for not only this part, but the first part and all the other parts after this. And I'll see you guys in the next video.